The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
I'm Kim Commando, America's Digital Goddess, and you're listening to the Secrets of Technology podcast. Enjoy.
You're listening to the Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to the Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Father Andrew Kinstetter. Hi, Father Andrew.
Hello there.
And Joanne Mercier. Hello, Joanne.
Hi, Dom.
And Happy New Year.
Ah, yes. Happy New Year.
Yep.
It is our first episode of the new year, and so we're glad to be here and join you all. Before we get started, I want to tell you about another show on the network that you're sure to enjoy. And this comes up by coincidence, Father Andrew, but it is appropriate that I'm going to tell you about the Secrets of Star Wars, which Father Andrew is the host of, and also appropriate for my pick of the week, by the way. This is entirely coincidental, but we'll get to that. But the Secrets of Star Wars, where Father Andrew and our band of merry Star Wars fans get together and talk about all things Star Wars, including right now the Book of Boba Fett, which I haven't seen the second episode yet, so no spoilers, but so excited to get the Book of Boba Fett and all things Star Wars. So check it out at sqpn.com/Star Wars or wherever fine podcasts are found, which Jimmy Aiken asked me, where are fine podcasts found? And so I've said, things like Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts and those places. So check it out. So let's get into talking about our topics this week. And this also another coincidence, Father Andrew, but I think this topic, this first segment, is something that you and I are particularly interested in, but yes. I want to hear Joanne's perspective too. So someone sent me a link to a YouTube video from a guy who's a Disney World fan. And the video asks the question, can Disney World survive the metaverse? And so the question is an interesting one, because Zuckerberg and other people are promoting this idea of the metaverse, Ready Player One, if you will, where we will wear virtual reality goggles or augmented reality goggles and experience all kinds of fun and interesting life experiences virtually as opposed to real. And he poses this question because if Disney World can survive, which is of course a bit of a clickbaity headline, but the question is if you can do this stuff virtually, will there still be two things? Will there be demand for real life experiences like going to theme parks, which is expensive, air flights and hotels and all the rest, when you can get a really good experience in a headset? And on the other side, will companies like Disney say it's too expensive to spend billions of dollars to build a theme park when we can do it virtually and have everybody come to it? And so the question is, let's assume, I just want to make an assumption here to start with. Let's assume that VR becomes really good so that what we see is near reality. Okay. I'm not going to assume that we'll have VR suits where we can interact physically with things like a holodeck, but let's assume that visually it will be near reality. Two questions. A, do you think people will start to prefer the virtual and augmented versions of these things? And B, do you think that even if people don't prefer it, do you think that there will still be a push toward that and we will have fewer of these things? And of course, the third question is what do we lose if we prefer the augmented and virtual over the real? And I think we have a very Catholic perspective on that, per se. Father Andrew, I'm going to let you go first because I know this is particularly interesting to you.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that, because I'm going to respond in the typical Catholic fashion here. Both and I think is going to be the prevailing kind of winds here. I think that there will be a push to virtual sort of experiences like that. And I mean, they're sort of already kind of existing somewhat. You can meet up with people in like the Oculus Quest and interact. And definitely that would appeal to people who don't have the money to go to Disney World or do those sorts of things, or who maybe have the money but aren't willing to invest in that and just want to kind of see what it's all about. I think that there's definitely a huge market for that, but I don't think it can ever replace and make the actual physical, real experience kind of go away. And I think Disney is going to continue to put money into building parks. And we even see that now. They're still building more parks, whether it's Disney or Universal or, the different theme parks. And my take on it definitely is that as much as we have this push towards virtual and technology, it will never replace a real experience. And I kind of go back to, again, a Catholic perspective of we are what a seminary professor would say is we are incarnational. So we are bodies, we are body and soul. And so there's something about the physicality of being a body that we need to relate and we need to experience. And in fact, that's why the sacraments always have some sort of physicality to it. Baptism, there's water. Confirmation, there's oil, and Eucharist is we're actually receiving the body of Christ in the form of the Eucharist. And there's something physical about that because God knows and created us to experience and to encounter and to learn and to live in a body. So the virtual world, as cool as it is, can never fully replicate a real bodily encounter with, the world and with other people. And so of course I've experienced Disney World. There's something phenomenal about physically being in this place. The sights, the smells. One thing that you wouldn't be able to do virtually, even if it was Ready Player One, or even if it was more than Ready Player One. What about the food? Like, there's experiences there that you just can't replicate, even if you sort of have a pseudo replication of that. The other thing that I thought about was back in March, we actually took my 2-year-old goddaughter to Disney World. And how would you help a toddler navigate a virtual world like that? We can easily kind of take a toddler and show them, and they can be just as excited in a real world encounter. But a virtual world would be much, much harder for a toddler to experience. So there would be less kind of family interactions in that way, unless they were older. I don't think they're ever going to go away, and I hope that they don't ever go away. There's something physical that you can't ever fully replace.
I want to reinforce and emphasize something you said there. Like there's a tendency among a lot of people to think that we are minds inhabiting bodies. Like we have a body machine that our mind pilots.
Yep.
But that is not what we are. We are our body and our mind. Like it's together, and our body is not something separate from us, which a duality, I think that it infuses a lot of the problems that in our society right now, frankly, where we that's a whole nother topic and not this show. But so we are our body. And I think that even if we had holodecks, if we had Star Trek holodecks, I think there's still something which is as real as, science fiction has made this sort of virtual stuff. I think there's still something in our mind that would say, but it's not real.
Right.
Like there's still, no matter how real it feels, it's not real.
Yep. There's something that would, the back of a mind would say, this is fake. And we would know that it's fake. And sure, we go to Disney World and we know that it's fake too. I mean, essentially, but there's a real experience there. That is definitely real. And especially if you go as a family, or if you go with friends, or even if you go by yourself, I was interacting with cast members, and sure, they're play acting, but it's real and it's fun, and there's something really, really good about that. And I wanted to also make a point. This is analogous, but I remember when ebooks became really big. And there was like this sort of fear that what about physical books? Would they go away? And they haven't, No. And again, one of my seminary professors would say books are incarnational. And like, so there's a reason why I have Dom, I can see your library behind you, yes. Like, even though we have this push towards the virtual, and it's convenient and it works, there's still something that we can't quite replace. in the real and the physical.
I got more to say on that, but Joanne, I want to give you a chance to say that something about this.
Well, I'm running two things. One, as one person who wants a holodeck before she dies. You know, I understand that whole thing, but I'm looking at it also through our Catholic faith and heritage, and human beings are tactile, which is why our symbols are so important, and which is why when we use our symbols, we use them abundantly, or should use them abundantly, because the more we feel the water or the oil or, you know, the hand laying on of hands, that's important to humans. So yeah, this wonderful virtual world can work, I think, for folks like me moving from autumn to winter in our lives who may not be able to go to Disney anymore, but still remember what it was like and can live in the virtual world, you know, if we can afford it, because I'm sure they're going to make you pay for it some way, but still probably not as much as you would if you go to Disney now. I hear it's real expensive.
Very expensive. Yeah.
It's almost like you're going to take out a second mortgage to go to Disney. But, you know, it could help people. It could help disabled people who've never had the chance to see it and to sort of experience it in a more virtual world rather than watching it on a TV screen.
Yes.
So it has its advantages, but again, humans are tactile. Look at what we're going through now with COVID. You know, when a kid comes up to me or somebody puts out their hand to shake mine and I have to kind of go, kind of bow my head and say hello. You know, I want to hug people. I want to touch people, you know, and shake their hand and wish them well. And it's inbred in us. So I jump, but I like the play acting stuff. Look, I was an actress at one point, so I know what it's like to live in an imaginary world. You always know, even in a holodeck situation, if that were to ever be, way in the back, you kind of know it's not real, but you play with it anyway, because we like to play as humans. It's part of how we process things too. Kids process things through play. Adults forget how to play because they don't think it's something an adult should do. And adults can play, but play responsibly.
I think adults should play.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly. Yes. I think we should not leave that
behind.
behind.
No, but we do as adults. And I think this might be a way to get adults, you know, older adults to play again. It's, you know, in a positive way.
And to be clear, I think we're all agreeing that while the real experience is better, VR is not bad. I mean, just like if I can't go to sub-Saharan Africa, I can watch a documentary on TV. That's good. That's not bad. It's just it's the lesser of the experiences, of course. But 99.99% of people won't be able to go, and so there is this idea that, you know, there is the best, and then there's the good. And so the best is if you can go to a thing, but if you can't go, experience it as best you can. And so, like, beyond the Disney World resort sort of thing, the questions, things like natural places, like national parks, you know, I love to be able to use the Oculus to, you know, do the wander and walk through places like historical places or the natural world sort of places. But I want to go walk in the woods for real. But also, so, like, again, from a Catholic perspective, it's one thing to go virtually to Lourdes, but that's not a real pilgrimage, you know, or Fatima or the Holy Land. There is something that is, it's a pilgrimage is a spiritual experience. That's not just a trip and a vacation, but there's a real prayer experience in going to a place, and you can't do that virtually. You can't literally go on a pilgrimage virtually.
That's also equivalent to why, you know, Zoom masses are like, I mean, especially during COVID, some people that's the only thing that they can do, but there's still something lacking, you know, and ideally, you know, once they're able to come back to mass, they come back to mass, and people don't stay in I'm comfortable sitting on my couch, just watching mass on TV. that can never replace the actual encounter that you have.
There's a dynamic in that room.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a spiritual dynamic in that room, and you really need to be in the room where it happens. I always say that.
Well, and that goes for all the sacraments too. I mean, you can't do a Zoom confession.
No.
No.
Like
Heck no.
the church has already put in place that the sacraments have to be physical, in person. And there's no way around that. And again, I think that speaks just back to how God created us and wanted us to relate.
Right. I want to kind of circle around to the book, ebook versus real book thing you mentioned, Father, which is, I love my Kindle books. I like the ease of reading, but I think in a world with ebooks, it makes I have fewer real books, but those real books, paper books, are the important ones. I'm less likely to buy pulpy, fiction, science fiction books I'm going to read once and never read again. I'm not going to buy those, on a paper version and have to find some place to store it. But I'll tell you, I've got, and you guys could probably maybe see it over my shoulder, I've got the Red Book of Westmarch version of the Lord of the Rings on my shelf, in the red leather slipcover. It is an amazing, beautiful book, and I treasure it. So there's, I think it, and one of the things we see is in an age of streaming music, records have come back to a younger generation. They like the physicality of the record on the turntable and the sound, the analog sound of the pops and hisses and stuff that when I was 18 and CDs came out, I was like, wow, you don't have to hear the pops and hisses anymore.
Yeah, I don't miss that.
It is kind of funny, but this is something real that it shows that there's something real in us that wants the real, wants something that's tangible in a world where things are more and more intangible.
I would also point out that there's a danger in living purely in a virtual world that is very isolationist.
Yeah.
And I think that can be a very real danger, because again, we're made to be in relationship with one another. And even if you're interacting virtually, it's really not the same, Yeah. I mean, just look at Facebook and Twitter. I mean, the virtual interactions, and of course it would be maybe better in a virtual world. But still there's a temptation to isolate. And I think that's just so dangerous on every human level and spiritual level.
And I know I've said this before. The one thing about VR for me is the fact that I get motion sick. But the more I hear you all talk about being able to take walks through a park or something, if I could click into that sort of experience, maybe it wouldn't be too bad. I hope so, because I would like to experience it other than feeling like I'm going to get green in the face.
Well, I get motion sick in certain VR experiences myself, like a virtual roller coaster. Like I don't really ride roller coasters much now in my middle age, but I haven't done one in a while. But I used to love it, and it didn't bother me. But like a VR roller coaster, my inner ear is not keeping up with what my eyes are seeing. Yeah, or flight simulators, which really is disappointing because I love flight simulators and I would love to be in an immersive one. But other VR experiences are fine to me. So it's an interesting, and maybe people have different experiences. But there's something about. One thing I want to bring up and kind of go back to the Disney World example is Disney has this new Galactic Star Cruiser experience. And what it is it's part of their Star Wars thing. It's a hotel resort, but it's immersive. So it's a sort of real virtual reality role-playing thing. You take on a role and you're on a ship, quote unquote, and you're in the virtual world. But it is so expensive. It's like $5,000 for two people for 3 nights, for 2 nights or something. And it is so inaccessible. And what's interesting is as they've revealed it and they're getting closer to launch, there's been a lot of backlash against it from fans who kind of say it's not it's an interesting idea, but what you've shown us doesn't work. It feels weird and not fake, because of course we know it's not real, but it just doesn't work. And it's interesting to see this sort of backlash against this. And I'm curious, is it a backlash because it's a step too far, too soon? But it also shows that there are some of these things that they are inaccessible to most people. And I think maybe the part of the backlash is it's $5,000. It should be perfect, but it's also something that most of us fans, you're showing to us fans that we can never have.
Something I've always lived by is sometimes too much of a good thing is sometimes just too much.
Yeah.
And couple that with the price of it.
Mm-hmm.
That makes it inaccessible to 75% of the people who want to go
or more,
right?
Yeah.
So, no, I think you sometimes you go a step too far, and that might be their step too far because they do things really well there.
Yeah,
I think it's elitist, and I suspect that that's the biggest kind of pushback against it because $5,000 for two people, you can't take your kids, you can't make it a family experience. Whereas, okay, going to Galaxy's Edge at Disney World is not cheap, but it's still affordable to a family if you plan well, and there's lots of families that go and we can't afford it.
Just keep shaking your head at it. It's incredible.
There's another part of this too. As I was talking to my wife Melanie about this the other night, and she's sort of unique in that she doesn't enjoy she doesn't get the appeal of something like Disney World or certainly like Galaxy's Edge, where you're pretending. But and so like in Galaxy's Edge, one of the things is like people are like the employees, the cast members are playing roles, and she doesn't get the enjoyment of that role playing. Like, I know they're not really a stormtrooper, so why this is weird that they're reacting to me as if they're a stormtrooper, and like she doesn't. It's just not something. It's like she understands why they're doing it, but she doesn't understand the appeal of it, and. Similarly, she's not interested in a VR headset or role-playing games or video games in which you are a character in the game as opposed to like casual like Tetris or something. And I'm sure she's not alone in that. I think there's a lot of people for whom playing at these things and being in immersive worlds is not at all interesting to them. I think that's probably more widespread of a. And I wonder if young people growing up where this is foisted on them, a metaverse is sort of foisted on them, will react against that, kind of rebel against that, and be more like Melanie in the future and reject the sort of intense, you will like virtual experiences in the metaverse sort of push that we're coming in. There'll be more, no, I only want real experiences. I'm kind of curious if that will be the human reaction.
I think it depends on how a child or a person is formed in imagination when they're young. And I come from a totally, I'm what am I, 10 years older than you, Dom, I think?
Probably, yeah.
We ain't even going to worry about father. He's way. But when I was a child, that's how we played together. As much as people think it's inappropriate now, cowboys and Indians, cops and robbers. I mean, that you played with your Barbie doll and you gave it, you had a million of them and you role played. That's what you did as a child. I don't know how much of that's going on right now. So it might play itself out in this type of a thing with this generation and these generations, or it may not, or may not be politically correct enough to assume roles. To play. See, that's what I mean, you're looking at a place like this that's saying, we want you to come and role play, or in a VR, VR metaverse, versus a society that's like, no, everybody is unique and we have to celebrate everybody's, uniqueness. And it's like, how will these two live in harmony?
Right.
Or will people jump to this place to escape?
Well, so there's a couple interesting things. So identity is much more fluid and malleable today. That's clear. And I think part of that is the fact that we are often living through avatars, younger people especially, living through avatars of various kinds online and masks that we've created for ourselves. So I think there's that. Also, I think a lot of young people, they play a lot of video games. And when you grow up playing video games as opposed to growing up play acting with your friends, running around outdoors and that sort of thing, So I'm a Cub Scout leader, and I see the difference between the boys who are their primary interaction with play is through video games, and others like my kids. And I don't say this to kind of extol myself, but we can't afford a PlayStation, so they don't get that. But they play in imaginary games. I mean, they play iPad games and stuff like that, but they play a lot of imaginary games with each other out of their own imagination. And it's interesting, the kids, I feel like the kids who play a lot of video games, they do feel more comfortable in these virtual roles, but I don't think they identify as much with it. I don't know. It's an interesting, that's something I have to think about. I can't say definitively one way or the other. And that makes me like a bad pundit, I suppose. But it's an interesting question. I'm curious what other people might think, especially parents, what they see in their own kids, whether they think that their kids are more or less comfortable in a virtual identity sort of situation.
So I'm not even sure how to jump in on this topic, as I've just been kind of thinking about my own experience, because I sort of grew up kind of on the verge of both. Like when I was a younger kid, we didn't have video games until I was maybe, I don't know, either late elementary or junior high. So, I mean, I remember, I mean, we would get we had laser tag, and we would be outside on the ranch, playing around and doing all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But then I also had the video games as well. And I guess I just think even of my experience of going to Galaxy's Edge in Disney World, I don't take on a persona, or I don't take on a role. I actually find it more interesting to ask the cast members about their backstory, because if you ask the cast members about their backstory, they will tell you their fake backstory, but they've developed their own, where they came from and what their trade is. And so I've actually found it more interesting to go as sort of a tourist, if you will. But from Earth, from, from Wyoming. Right. Yeah. So yeah, I guess I'm not sure. I've never really felt comfortable kind of taking on a different persona. And maybe for me, that's because I know myself, and I don't want to take on this other persona who might have a different, morality or different, some people really like to, especially RPG video games, to play the bad guy and do all the evil things. And some of them, the story changes if you do that. And I've always, even if I play those games, I cannot do the bad thing. Even though I know it's fake, I just can't do it. And, and so that's a really interesting question, especially for kids today. And I'm not even sure, where they would fall on that spectrum.
So I've never been to Galaxy's Edge, although I hope to someday. But a few months ago, I went to Plymouth Plantation in Plymouth, Massachusetts, which is where the site of the Pilgrims and Thanksgiving and all that sort of thing, and we happen to be in Plymouth, and they do something similar there. They have a recreation of the original Plymouth Village, and they have employees, interpreters, who play the parts of various people, real people of that time. And so when you talk to them, they are, I'm trying to think of the names. I forget the names, but this specific housewife who lived there, and her, the husband of so and so, and
all those people.
Yeah. Let's say, and I remember talking to some of them, and again, Melanie was like, I just want to ask her straight up 21st century questions about the era, about the clothing and the stuff. And it's you can't really. Right. But I had fun interacting with this woman about the garden and the stuff like this. And when I step back and think this is really the woman playing a role. I mean, in my mind, at the forefront of my mind, that I was I kind of got into it and treated her like she was the person she was playing. But when I step back and go, she's really not that person. And it's kind of awkward a little, but it's still kind of fun. And I mean, I guess I still enjoy the play. I don't know what I'm trying to, if I have a point about that, but it's just interesting that this goes beyond the technology of VR and modern, 21st century resorts. This is something that's been a thing for a while in just different circumstances, I guess.
It's interesting how folks can suspend that type of thinking when they're watching a screen, but when they're in front of an actor or an actress doing this, it blows their mind. It's the same thing. It's just
That's true.
You're in it. You're inside of it. And I love going to like Plymouth Plantation or Sturbridge Village and listening to these folks. Because number one, in order to do this type of a thing, you have to amass a lot of knowledge as to what area you're in, what you're
They're
doing.
really
you have to
knowledgeable.
have such a backstory that you can't break it. And I'm amazed at how actors and actresses can do that, but they're conveying something to us that we, that's not in a history book. They're trying to bring history alive.
Yeah.
So but it's just funny to watch people. You can watch this stuff on the screens, but if you're in the middle of it, your mind blows.
Which is why going to a live theater, going back to our real life experiences versus virtual experiences, live theater is very different from watching something on a screen.
Yep.
Going to see Hamilton in person was very different from watching Hamilton on Disney Plus, because they were real people in front of us, and there's still that. They're real as opposed to that screen thing.
Yeah, and you're the director. You're looking at the different cuts. You're not looking at what somebody else wants you to look at. You're making the decisions.
True, right?
I also want to point out too, when it comes to like the live action role playing, which if you've seen Hawkeye recently, you know who LARPers are.
Yes, it's awesome.
but it goes beyond even just say the geek pop culture. I mean, so like you were talking about your experience, Dom, but also like there's, I mean, I had a friend who was involved with reenacting historical battles from the Civil War, and so I think that there's something interesting there too, because there's actually, I mean, we all have our hobbies and our interests, but when you get together like that, actually, I think it's really good because there's a shared interest, there's a shared hobby, but there's also a shared relationship. Again, that's not a virtual world that they're just entering, but they're live action role playing, but there's this camaraderie and community that builds up around those sorts of things. And we see that, from historical battles to Star Wars to, whatever the case may be. And again, there's something about the reality of it, even if it's role playing and fake, that I think is just never going to go away.
Well, this is a fascinating topic. I want to, encourage listeners to let us know what you think. We definitely are going to be dealing with this sort of thing for years to come in our society, and it's something we need to think about. Like I said, businesses will be thinking about this. Individuals need to think about this. We're still figuring out how to do this. I
do want to add too, and even the tech companies are debating whether this is the future. So you've got Meta, who's pushing the metaverse, but then you've also got companies like Niantic, who famously, it's the creators behind Pokemon Go. They're pushing an AR related universe. So not a complete virtual thing, but like probably, and there's all the rumors about even Apple coming out with AR glasses and stuff. So even the tech companies are like, some are pushing the virtual world and some are pushing the augmented reality world. And to be honest, I'm on the AR world train instead of the virtual world train.
Same here. Although even there, it's interesting. Speaking of Apple and their AR glasses, I saw some pundit was saying, by 2030, the iPhone will be no more, and everything will be AR, and you'll wear your phone screen on your face, and it will be superimposed over the world around you. And I said, that is a horrific idea.
Yeah.
I don't want I imagine like the Minority Report, wherever I go, ads personalized to me are superimposed over everything. No, thank you. Again, I think this is a case of I want a real experience more often than even an augmented reality experience. And I want to be able to turn that off and just get away from that.
And I still want my watch to be my phone, so I can drop one more device off, and
yeah. I like the idea. I like the idea of AR, but I want it to be an accessory to my device that I
I want it to be an augmented thing that I can choose to put on or take off whenever I want.
Yeah. We're in this transition in our society, and I think it's going to be something we're going to have to figure out. But I think it's one of the major transitions. This technology, I think it's probably one of the biggest transitions since the computer that we got to figure this out. All right, let's move on. Before we do, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the secrets of technology, including Anita H., Kathleen H., Jacques O., Thomas M., and Daniel M. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of technology in all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. All right, let's move on to our headlines of the week. So this one is interesting. It's not, I wouldn't usually just, talk about recall or auto recalls, but there's a bigger topic here that I want to kind of mention, which is Chevy has had their new Bolt electric vehicle, and they've had this huge recall. It's gotten to the point where they've had to recall every single Chevy Bolt that has been sold since 2017 because the batteries have this bad habit of exploding, and that's bad. And the articles that I'll link to, there was a Slashdot entry, post that linked to several different articles, and they all kind of come together to kind of present this question of, are we trying too hard to push to electric vehicles before the technology is ready and is unproven? Like, because electric vehicles are depending on us improving battery technology such that cars can go more than a couple dozen miles. We're up to maybe a couple hundred miles at this point on a charge, and charging takes half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever it is now. We're not yet at the convenience and utility of internal combustion engines. But yet some of these companies have talked about, we're not going to stop. We're going to stop making internal combustion engine automobiles by the year 2040 or 2030. I think was one of the companies, which seemed really precipitous. So what do you think? Are we pushing too hard to switch over before it's ready and potentially putting more dangerous technology on the roads? What do y'all think?
Yes. In a word, yes. Now, backstory on this. My husband is a car guy. I mean, the man watches YouTube videos on cars and, has changed cars in over 40 years. I think we've had about 20 cars. His own, not including mine. So he proclaims a couple of weeks ago, I think my next car is going to be an electric car. And I'm sitting there going, have you thought this through before you make them? I mean, and he's like, I don't want a Tesla. And I'm like, well, good thing. But now he's starting to jump on the bandwagon because of the gas situation. Gas is expensive. This would be cheaper. I said, yeah, we'd have to put a station in our house, in our garage, which is small enough to begin with, and then, so I think there's been a lot of hype because of the saving the planet and all of that to jump into something a little too fast. I mean, if these cars are actually, the batteries are actually blowing and causing fires, this is something to be concerned about. Yes, your standard car can do the same thing, but it's been, we've had cars now in this configuration for, I'll say, 80 or 90 years. I know cars are
over 100 years.
I know cars are older than that, but the cars that we kind of have now in this kind of format, about 90 years or 100, and we've got it down pat. What I'd like to see them do is still make them more fuel efficient and, of course, more carbon efficient. But I think they've abandoned that idea totally now for the electric car. And I don't think a lot of us are going to be moving to electric cars right away. I know I drive a Subaru. I'm on my 7th Subaru. Subaru only has a hybrid in two models right now. So, I'm still looking at being a gas guzzler, I guess, but I think we are kind of running into it a little fast.
What do you, Father?
I would sort of just echo what Joanne said. I mean, I think it's silly to jump on the bandwagon of something that is dangerous and we haven't fully tested and we don't fully quite know, how to build these things without them potentially, exploding and starting on fire.
And the key to this is that these are not exploding in fire because of accidents, because they're damaged in an accident. Well, that can happen too, and that can happen to a gasoline engine. This is happening because of a manufacturing defect which is endemic to electric battery technology, which is they've discharged too far and recharging, and it causes an overheating condition and a runaway overheating condition, that sort of thing, and then it causes a fire. And that's really what it is because the technology just isn't there. And there's this mindset oftentimes in technology where what we want to do is possible if only we spend enough time doing it. Just because we want it to happen, it will, because that's worked before. We've always made, computer CPUs faster because we've always been able to do it. And we've always been able to make this happen. And so we've got this mindset, I think, in technology where we think just because we want a thing to eventually happen, we imagine that it can happen,
Right.
well, we will eventually make it happen. And at some point, that's not going to happen.
Well, and the thing is, too, is we'd be moving from gasoline to electric. We're moving also in how we store this energy. Because number one, right now, the only way you can get gas is to go to a gas station. Okay, they're saying with electric cars, you can put these stations in your house. So the potential explosion possibilities right now of a regular gas car, the gas station, there's more of a chance of things going wrong there. Now you're going to put one of these things in your house and you're going to plug your car in at night. You could wake up in the middle of the night with your car on fire. Who knows? I mean, I sound a little bit like Chicken Little, but I just don't think they've thought this totally through yet. And if Congress gets involved, it's going to get worse.
There's a good, just basic principle there of all technology is as a consumer, you never really want to be the first to jump onto the bandwagon of any new technology because there's always going to be bugs. There's always going to be issues, and so you always kind of want the experts to kind of, hammer out all the bugs before, just the average person tries to pick it up. Otherwise, you're going to run into all sorts of problems.
And it's funny because my husband looks at me with this whole issue and says, "You're not on this bandwagon and you're big into technology." I said, "Kevin, this has a lot more to do with motion and motors than it does with just my computer. It's a different thing."
As someone into technology, that's why I'm a little, because I understand technology and the limitations. But the other thing is with electric vehicles in general, there's a wholesale change in how our society works that's underway because of this. And we talked about that in the first segment about something different. But, our society is built around the idea that I can hop in a car, go to a gas station, fill up in 2 minutes, drive somewhere pretty far away. We've built our society around this ability, but when we have electric vehicles that can't go as far, it takes longer to charge them. Where does all this electricity coming from? Like, sure, we're drilling oil to put in our cars, but where's the electricity coming from when you have brownouts in California in the summer and all this? And we're not building nuclear power plants, which I'm a nuclear power proponent, and I think they can be safe and they can be effective, and I think they would be partial solution to this. But where's all the electricity coming from? It's not coming from solar panels and wind farms. This is, and only 5% of the cars are electric now. How about when we want 80% of them on the road to be electric? Again, where's all that electricity coming from? These are things that we're pushing this from a political point of view to satisfy a political block, a voting block, without considering the wider implications. And yeah, I know oil eventually will run out. That's a fact. Okay, sure. But I don't think we're considering the whole issue, and I think we're rushing headlong into this without considering the entirety of the situation, including some of these technological problems. So, all right. So that's that question, and let's move on to our next headline, which is kind of interesting little bit of tech. The headline is, "This USB kill cord can instantly wipe your laptop if snatched or stolen." And okay, the clickbait headline aside, what it is someone has developed a hardware physical security for people whose laptops contain sensitive information. And what they can do is this cable, it's a USB cable, you can set it so that if it's unplugged without having a security, whatever the security feature is turned off, it will instantly lock down your computer. Okay. Lock it is the basic setting. Now you can also configure it to wipe the drive if you want. and I suppose if you are someone who has, vital information, and they talk about journalists or people in law enforcement, or I suppose if you're James Bond or that sort of thing, sure. But it's an interesting idea, and I just thought it was fascinating that this sort of thing has become available. It's a hacker cable. I think someone's selling it like on, online, like on Etsy or something like that. Or it's crowdsourced. I don't know where the crowdsourcing is from. There's a website called crowdsupply.com. So for $60, you can buy this cable. It works on Mac OS, Windows, and Linux. The kill the drive bit only works on Linux, but thankfully, which actually is sort of a Linux thing, isn't it? I don't have any of our Linux people on the phone, so I can say that. But in any case, I think it's kind of fascinating that this sort of stuff has become mainstream, that is available to the public. Any thoughts on that?
My husband would buy one
Yeah.
because he's a tax preparer. So
Right.
it's important to him that all of those people's social security numbers and vital information do not get into the hands of anybody. So if I mentioned this to him, he'd probably go, ooh. So
Right.
I don't think it appeals to just kind of your average Joe out there. I as I read the article, all I could think about was like Mission Impossible and like, the super vital, top secret government information that just can't get in the wrong hands. But, like if someone were to snatch my computer, they'd get a bunch of pictures and, and Star Wars games and whatnot. But, nothing that crucial that I need to wipe the drive for.
no, nobody'd want my Roman missile on there.
Right. I mean, I get personal financial information on there, but nothing like where, oh no, they know what's in my what I spent in my checkbook,
Right.
That doesn't bug you. I mean, it would be, I don't want that to happen, but it's not, end of the world. But I suppose there are, like, especially if you're a doctor's office and you have HIPAA compliant things, you're a lawyer, you're a journalist. I had a friend, a guy I worked with who used to work at the White House in IT. And he talked about the steps they would take when they would go, like, say, on a presidential trip to China. Everyone would get a new laptop and a phone to take with them. They would hand in their personal devices at the foot of Air Force One. And then when they'd come back, they would take the devices back that they had taken to China and destroy them and give them back their own devices.
Yeah.
Like, they took some serious steps. Because the assumption was it has been compromised. Like, they just assumed. So there are people, I mean, that's of course at the White House level, but there are people out there who work in defense and, in various industries. We have industrial spying, who this could be interesting to. So, if you walk away from your computer at a coffee shop, if someone grabs your device, it locks and can't be unlocked.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
It might be something that businesses like that kind of look into to getting for their employees versus just, us buying one for ourselves, unless you're Joanne's husband.
Paranoid. Yeah,
I do like the name
paranoid.
Buzzkill, though.
Yeah, Buzzkill is good. That's good. And then our last headline is kind of interesting. It talks about the headline is "Retailers Surrender to Unprecedented Costs on Online Returns," and it basically says that given both the supply chain issues and the worker shortages, more and more retailers, especially e-commerce retailers, are telling people, don't bother returning the thing that you want to return. We'll just credit you for it, or we'll send you a replacement if what you want is if you have something defective. And which is interesting. Like, and Amazon has kind of done this for a while. I've had to return things to Amazon where they've said, yeah, don't worry about it. We'll send you a new one, or we'll just credit you for it. But it's getting more common, and now the key is to keep people honest. They are tracking people who do this, and if you do a little too much, if you fit a pattern, they're gonna guess that you're scamming the system. But what do y'all think? Have you had experiences with returning things lately that have been interesting at all?
I just returned something from my cousin, and it took 4 weeks after I brought it to Kohl's to bring it back to Amazon to get my credit.
Oh,
so
right.
I thought that was like how long did it take them to send it back? But yeah, it took about 4 weeks. I just got it yesterday. That's the only thing I've had a problem with. Everything seems to go back and forth rather quickly.
How about you, Father?
And I haven't had to return anything. and I guess my concern here is just with the waste that happens because of something like this. I know Amazon is trying to minimize their cost to process returns, but what are you going to do with a defective unit? And, unless you're conscious about, putting it to the right use or, recycling it. I mean, I think even just in general with Amazon and everything online, there's perhaps a lot more of just that kind of waste that happens rather than not.
I'm thinking like the wrong size shoes or the wrong size shirt. What do you do with that? Are people going to know let's give it to somebody, who needs something like this? Or
right. How many just throw it away? Yeah.
We did a headline a while ago where it was an investigation in the UK of like these warehouses of stuff that Amazon was just throwing, like return stuff that Amazon was just throwing in the garbage. That was perfectly good stuff, but just was returned, and it was less expensive to just throw it away than to reprocess it. I had a return experience recently where I returned something to Amazon, but at Whole Foods. This Whole Foods is now owned by Amazon, and let me tell you, it was actually a really pleasant experience. I went to Amazon. They had me print out a QR code. I went to my local Whole Foods, walked over to the special area that's just for this. Show her the QR code, hand her the package. She scans it, and she's like, "Okay, you'll get a credit on your card within a couple of days." And sure enough, I got a credit, fairly quickly. So,
well, that's what I did.
It's really nice.
That's what I did at Kohl's, but it took 4 weeks. Could have been the Christmas rush. I don't know, but
also could be that Kohl's, maybe the way that they return things to Amazon is different, just because Whole Foods is owned by Amazon, and so maybe there's an internal thing versus the external thing with Kohl's. But it's a smart move on Kohl's part to become a return center for Amazon. That's very interesting. All right, so I guess that'll do it for our headlines. Let's move on to our picks of the week. Joanne, what is your pick this week?
Oh, my pick is very timely. But I bought this a while ago, so it's one of those things where I wanted to actually see and use it, and I had shied away from it for a while. But it is the Wise Bluetooth Smart scale for weighing yourself. Come on, it's January, New Year, everybody's going on the diet. But I've had this one for a bit, and I find it, because I have other Wise products, I find it very simple to use on a Bluetooth. One thing you do have to know about these scales, this is of the two Wise scales, this is the more advanced technology one, number one. And number two, it's glass. Okay, yes. So this is important. In order for it to do things like body fat, BMI and heart rate and all of that, it needs to be glass, and you need to make sure you don't have socks on or shoes, and B, it has to be on a flat, non-rug surface. Okay, in order for it to take the right, because I saw a lot of comments saying this thing doesn't weigh me correctly. Well, if you're putting it on a rug, it's not going to.
Right.
But it does things like if you want to weigh your pet, for example, and a lot of us pet owners do that, it knows if it's been weighing you for a while. If you pick up your pet, it'll say, do you have something? Are you holding something? Do you have a pet? And it will weigh the pet separately.
Oh, wow. So it doesn't say one at a time?
No, it doesn't say one at a time. Because trying to get her paws all on that with just 4 paws would not work. But Wise makes a good product relatively cheap, as we know from the cameras. And this is only $34 on Amazon. But I've had it for 3 months now. It's been pretty accurate versus my doctor's, because I've been to a doctor's appointment in between. So, and if you're looking to track yourself so you can see how you're losing, my goal is 1 pound a week. Yeah. And so far I've been doing it. So
good.
If you're into that kind of thing, it doesn't, as far as I know, it doesn't broadcast it anywhere unless probably you want it to. Yeah, and I wouldn't want it to. So, but I find it as a very simple, I had to replace my other one. But it doesn't live in my closet anymore because my husband has a tendency of throwing all kinds of things in the bottom of the bathroom closet. And this is glass. You really have to be careful with it because it's glass.
We've actually talked about several different smart scales on the show before. And I think, Father Andrew, you had one that you picked a while ago. And You still got
I
it?
still got it.
Good?
It still works pretty well. It connects to Wi-Fi. I think Run Kobo is the brand that I have, and it does the same sort of thing like yours, Joanne. It kind of tries to measure the BMI and everything there too.
Yeah, that's depressing.
I have the Withings scale, and that has worked out well. One of the nice things, I don't know if the Wise does this, but the Withings scale can have multiple people.
Yes.
Like, so I have
It
multiple
does.
people in the household, and as long as you don't weigh close to each other, it can distinguish. So like I weigh much more than my wife does, and so it knows me versus her when I weigh. Although some days, I don't know. That's a whole other thing. I have to talk to somebody who knows physiology better. But some days my weight varies like by 7 pounds.
Yeah.
And like today was like, who was on this thing? It's me. You're saying it's 7 pounds less than it was yesterday. I don't know why.
It's a water thing,
Yep.
and we women know it very well. And we also know that men lose weight faster than women. So if a man and a woman both go on a diet at the same time, you know the man's going to lose 10 pounds, the woman's going to lose 2.
Yes,
eating the same food.
Yeah, just accept it. Don't get mad. Awesome. That's a good pick. And then, like you said, inexpensive. It's not at all expensive. So that's a good pick. All right, Father Andrew, what is your pick this week?
So first of all, I feel slightly hypocritical talking about this pick because I talked about the goodness of physical media. So my pick though is basically the magazine version of the Kindle store. So there's a website out there called pocketmags.com, and you can buy digital magazine subscriptions or single issues from many of just kind of the major magazines that are available out there: National Geographic, Doctor Who, Star Trek, Star Wars Insider. And the Star Wars one is actually what got me into it, because I was featured in one of their articles a year ago. And so I was able to get the digital issue, and then I just subscribed to the magazine. And so you can download the app, you can view it on any smart device. And, so it's a convenient way to keep up on your favorite magazine without having the physical. Of course, some issues I totally still have physical, and I will go to the newsstand and buy them physical if they're that important that I want the physical version of it as well. So it's kind of a fun way to keep up on magazines.
Yeah, magazines are one of those ephemeral sort of things. It's not like a book that you read forever and ever. Like they usually tend to be. Although anyone of a certain age remembers the relative with the garage full of National Geographics.
Oh yeah,
because they were the thing you never threw it away.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually pretty cool. I have News Plus, Apple News Plus, which has a bunch of magazines included, but not all of them. So if I wanted to, some of these, like the Doctor Who magazine, for example, I probably would have to come here and subscribe. It's on
sale right now. They're calling it a mega sale. If you buy like the annual subscription, it's like $2 an issue or something. So just saying.
Okay. Well, 70% off.
There you go.
Oh my!
So.
Now I'm tempted. Awesome. That's good. Well, so my pick this week is related to something that's real, but has to do with Star Wars, as I mentioned before. That is the Star Wars T-shirt Club subscription. Now, I'm actually wearing, and Joanne and Father can see my shirt that I'm wearing. It's the Grogu's seafood chowder shop. If you remember from the second season of The Mandalorian, Grogu gets to have some chowder, and it is very cute. And so every month, the way it works is for $20 a month, every month they send you a new shirt, and it's their choice. So if you don't like the design, you're stuck with it, which is, it's sort of a, crapshoot. But so far, I've been on it for several months, and I'm not going to do it forever because I don't need that many shirts. But I was kind of in a situation where a lot of my old shirts were falling apart, and I needed a few more, and said, well, who doesn't need more Star Wars shirts?
Right.
So you tell it, men, woman, youth, the size, and then every month they send you another shirt and they charge you the $20. And it's a little expensive, I suppose, but the quality is pretty good. And I've had a Boba Fett shirt. I had a fun one. I think it was around Life Day in November, which is the Wookiee Life Day holiday, was Chewbacca's family. And it was like in that 80s portrait style where like they have Chewbacca's head is really big, and then they have like the Chewbacca's wife's kind of smaller and staring off into the distance. And like, it was very funny. I had someone comment and say, why do you have a shirt with a bunch of dogs on it? I'm like, what? They're Wookiees. Anyway, it's fun. And if you're into tech, you're probably into sci-fi and Star Wars. And so I thought that would be a fun little different thing to pick this week. Excellent. Let us then wrap things up now, because that is all we have. And I want to thank everyone for listening, and I want to solicit your response and your feedback on our discussion. You can let us know what you think about anything we've talked about by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/technology, or the SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to technology@sqpn.com. And you can find links from our discussions and our picks of the week on our show notes at sqpn.com. Be sure to follow The Secrets of Technology in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app, or at the SQPN YouTube channel, where you should make sure to hit the bell to get notifications. And until next time, Joanne Mercier, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
Thanks, Dom.
Father Andrew Kinstetter, thank you as well.
Absolutely.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.